Hey, everybody. Welcome to Living Room Labs. My name is Steve, and I'm so glad you're joining us. So glad you're here. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is a just super simple channel video that we put out weekly that just helps you as parents center your homes on Jesus, helps with parenting, helps with using the mundane moments of life to figure out how to do this thing we call discipleship right inside your living room. And give you guys real practical tips on kind of like what can you do and how does what we're talking about at church kind of fit into your life at home. And you probably woke up this morning and some of you realized that summer's over. It ended. I'm not sure when that happened or how that happened. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it was a literal overnight kind of summer. Now for us, we homeschool, so our kids didn't get up and go to school this morning. They did school this morning, but they've been doing school all summer long, so they don't know any different. We found out a long time ago that trying to change from summer mode to fall mode inside your home, and then suddenly it become, hey, now we're doing school, and you've been home the whole time and playing, that was nearly impossible. But likely, if your kids were going to school, and I remember, my first few days of school as I was a kid, it was always make sure you got your lunch packed or you got your lunch money, make sure you got all your books and all your supplies, make sure you got your locker combination, make sure you have the right clothes to wear, because if you don't wear the right clothes on the first day of school, that could be absolutely disastrous. So all of the things had to be in place. And as a parent, I remember my parents were very engaged and involved with making sure that I had everything I needed, so much so I could just grab my stuff and go. But there was a moment where that decision on the part of my parents changed very, very quickly. I had a favorite pair of jeans. And when I was in like late elementary school, early middle school, I had a favorite pair of jeans. And my mom washed those favorite pair of jeans and then dried those favorite pair of jeans. And then said favorite pair of jeans were now shrunk. And I was very angry. I was very ornery. And I yelled at my mom. And my mom replied simply by, guess what you get to do? You get to do your own laundry from now on. And I learned the very important lesson of being dependent on myself and being completely independent of my parents. And that's what I want to talk about today. My wife went to the zoo today, and she sent me a picture of both of my two older daughters, both of which are in middle school. And I realized that this morning that they are both in middle school. I love it. I think that's great. I love the fact that my kids are being way more independent and doing way more things on their own. I don't have to remind them of every little thing anymore. And they can just do their thing. And that's awesome. My wife, on the other hand, hates it. She wants to do everything for them. She wants to still baby them. She wants to be their mommy, and she wants to hold them like they're little babies and have to actually feed them a bottle again. That's where she wants to go. She would love to change diapers all over again. She's crazy. I don't know why that's even a thing. I'm done with that stage, and I'm okay with it. But I want to talk about independence versus something called interdependence, because I think as parents, we want our kids to be independent, and for good reason, right? It teaches them something. But we sometimes focus so much on independence. I actually think maybe we're using the wrong word. And I want to suggest that maybe we should talk about learning, instead of independence, learn interdependence. And it's a little bit different, right? Independence is doing things all by yourself. And there's a degree to that. There's a level of that, how important that is, right? You want your kids to tie their shoes by themselves. You want your kids to be able to get dressed by themselves, to feed themselves. All of those things are independent tasks. But when it comes to helping them learn how to follow Jesus, how to take care of our neighbors, how to take care of family, how to live this life centered on Jesus, how do we actually do that? And it's not by creating independent people. It's by creating interdependent people. And let me show you what I mean, because I really do believe this is actually God's model for community. And I believe it's actually the model that could translate to our family as well in a lot of respects. So I want you to think a little bit about Genesis. And if you go all the way back to Genesis, God made Adam. It wasn't good for Adam to be alone. so God made Eve, and God was there with them. It was all of them together, being interdependent on each other, because interdependence simply means that we are dependent on community. It's the actual essence of community. If our Jesus-centeredness hinges on our ability to be in community, and then community is actually built on our interdependence of each other. So we need each other to rely on one another, not to do things for us, but to help us. As we help others, others help us. And that's what creates this essence of community. But more so, I love what Paul says in, and I want to open up the word here. So if you have your app on your phone handy, your Bible handy, go there, Galatians chapter 6. Because Paul mentioned something in here that I think is really, really interesting. In Galatians chapter 6, in verse 2, Paul says, carry one another's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone considers himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. Let each person examine his own work, and then he can take pride in himself alone and not compare himself with someone else, for each person will have to carry his own load. But go back to verse 2, carry one another's burdens. Carry one another's burdens. That's interdependence. That's depending on each other for what we need. It's helping each other out. It's creating community. It's the very thing that if you look back in Acts that the church actually did for each other. Sold their possessions, came along together, helped one another out, considered the group to be more important necessarily than our own individual needs. And I think we can actually make this a part of our own family dynamic. So let me show you two things that I want to kind of drill into today really quick that are super practical that I think you guys can do that would kind of help create this sort of interdependent community nature inside your own home. So first of all, number one, think about how you can rely on each other, okay? Think about how you can rely on each other. Your kids rely on you, obviously. But what about you relying on your kids, right? So for my older kids, for example, I actually ask my teenage daughter her advice on things. If I'm thinking about something or I have an idea, especially when it comes to ministry and family ministry and ministry with teens and those kinds of things, I ask her advice all the time. If I'm writing something that I want to communicate to her age group or even just to get her thoughts, I just want to hear what she has to think. I want to know what questions she has. So I'm asking her questions all the time because I want her advice on some things. And that validates her. That makes her feel important. That makes her feel valued in the family. It does a lot for her. For my younger kids, we just make sure that they understand that they're actually helping, that the things that they want to do are actually helpful. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes our younger kids want to help. It's not helpful. It's just not even a little bit. It actually makes it more work on us. Like when my little ones want to load the dishwasher, that's cool, thanks, but you probably load the dishwasher wrong. I'm gonna have to go back and redo it again. But don't let them see that because that will just kill the whole moment. But if they feel this, oh, you've seen it happen, I know you have, this overwhelming sense of pride and accomplishment when they actually help you and they know that they've helped. And then they want to do it more and more and more. And while that can be maybe a tiny bit annoying because you're like, I don't have time for this and I just want to get it done. I don't need you to help me. I just want to do it because it's faster if I just do it rather than try to explain it to you. Yeah, that's annoying, but let them do it. Let them help. That teaches them that you are relying on them. You are dependent on them to contribute to the family and help. Number two, so the first one is how can you rely on each other? The second one is how can you rely on God together? And this one's probably even more important. It sounds so simple, but I'm going to promise you it's not as easy as it sounds because the best way to do this is letting your kids in on what you're praying for as a family. So as an adult, you and your spouse, what are you praying for? Right? What are you praying about? What's important to you? What are the things that you're struggling with? What are some of the things that you're wrestling with God? Let your kids in on those things. Now, there's some things that they can't handle. I get that. But with what they can, let them in on it. And the easiest way to do this, something we do in our family all the time, is we take, a couple of nights a week. Sometimes we don't do it as often as we should. But we just take a sheet of paper and we just sit after dinner and go through and ask each other what our prayers are. And, the little ones have these prayers that are a little bit, goofy and silly and don't make a lot of sense sometimes. And sometimes they're absolutely profound and amazing. But that doesn't mean we say, okay, kids, what are your prayers? We say, okay, well, here's ours. And the most beautiful thing in the world is when you have written down on a sheet of paper what your prayer as an adult, a nice big adult prayer that's like, God, I'm really struggling. We've told our kids, hey, we're struggling with finances, or we're struggling with a decision to make, or whatever. Mommy and daddy had an argument and we're trying to figure it out. When your kids pray for you, interdependence on God, bringing God into the equation as a family to say, hey, we need help. We need you, and teaching your kids that is an absolute priority. So how can you rely on each other, and how can you together rely on God? So that's today. We will see you guys next week. As always, we are praying for you, and we can't wait to see you guys next week.